Okay, so you're a producer or you're an artist and want to work with a producer and you're trying to figure out how all the money works, upfront payments, back-end royalties, splits, copyright, ownerships, a lot of confusing stuff. We're going to get into it. Let's break it down. Two kinds of copyrights you have to understand. Very, very important. First copyright, it's called a sound recording copyright. Now, what is a sound recording? Some people call this the master. That's the actual recording, not the song, not the composition. That's a different copyright. We're about to get to that. The sound recording copyright for the master recording, whoever recorded the song owns that copyright. Sometimes that's the artist. Sometimes that's the label who paid for it and signed the artist and made the deal with the artist saying, everything you record is now ours. All right, so now we understand what the sound recording copyright is. Why do I call it a sound recording? Why not just recording or a master? That's the legal term. People call it sound recording, master, interchangeable. That's the legal term. Okay, other kind of copyright that you need to know about. Composition. The composition, some people call this the song. That's a different copyright. That's who wrote the song. Typically, publishing companies control this. Sometimes they own it if they sign the songwriter. Very, very different. So a composition copyright, this is not the recording. I write a song, you cover it, and you put it out. I own the composition copyright. You don't because you didn't write the song, but you recorded it. So you own the sound recording copyright because you recorded it. I don't own that copyright. I didn't record it, but I wrote the song. So who owns the composition copyright? Me if I wrote the song. And who owns the sound recording copyright? You if you recorded it and put it out. All right, moving on. Let's talk producer deals. Typically, this is where the word points get thrown around. Oh, we do points. You get 3 points. No, I'm a 5-point producer, man. I get the What are points? That's a major label system. I'm assuming that if you're on a major label, you're not watching this video. Your lawyers are dealing with that. So we're not going to talk about the major label point system. What you need to know is that points represent percentage points. So yes, in all the literature you're going to read, the blogs you're going to read, and the books, they're going to be like, yeah, well, points, typically producers get between 0 and 5 points. Some superstars get 7 points, whatever. That's based on a major label contract. In the indie world, how this works, it's percentage, just like we're talking about. And typically producers get between 15 and 25% of net royalties. Net is defined after recording costs, the producer's fees, other kinds of costs like distribution, manufacturing, that kind of stuff. If you're working with a producer and they're like, well, I'm a 4-point producer, that means they're going to get between 20-25% on an indie deal. All right, let's talk royalties. First off, we're going to talk publishing. Now, remember what publishing represents? Publishing is that composition copyright. Who gets publishing? Well, whoever wrote the song should get publishing. Let me repeat. Whoever wrote the song gets publishing. Sometimes producers are going to come in and they're going to say like, well, I want some publishing. It's like, well, okay, maybe if you help write the song. But if you don't help write the song, then you should not be giving publishing. That's just kind of how it works. In Nashville, they have the famous saying, 1 word, 1/3. That just means like if you're in the room as the song's being written, you get an equal cut of the song. They don't really break down, well, I wrote 7 words and you wrote 37 words, so that divided. You don't want to deal with that kind of stuff. It's very simple. If you help write the song, you should get an equal cut of the song. That's typically how it all works. Now, in the hip hop world, sometimes producers who are making the beat, they typically say, I get 50% of the publishing of that composition. I made the beat. And then whoever top lines, singers, rappers, whatever, they have to split 50% themselves, whoever's writing that top line. That's in the hip hop world. And in the rock, country, Americana, even the pop world, typically, they're usually splitting it equally amongst all the songwriters. And when we're breaking down words and music, nobody splits that up. Nobody says, well, I wrote the words, you wrote the music, so I get 50%. It's all an equal cut. So when you're registering the copyright, everyone gets an equal cut of the words and the music. That's just typically how it all works. So when we're talking remixes are a little different. Remixes technically are a derivative work. That's the legal jargon, legal term, derivative. But usually a remixer, producer who remixes a song, we'll just call him a remixer. They're going to get a flat fee to remix the song and don't get any ownership. You don't have to re-register the copyright. It's just like, here's $500. Thank you for remixing my song. Part ways. Never really talk again. You're not registering publishing. You're not doing anything like that. That's just kind of typically how it goes. All right. Getting back to that point system. So if a producer gets back-end points, they get that back-end royalty revenue. What does that mean? How are you calculating this? After the recording costs are recouped, after they make that money back, the producer gets some points. So if your producer gets back-end points, they're entitled to back-end of the master recording, that sound recording that we talked about before. There are producers all the time who don't write the song, they don't get any publishing, but they still get that back end. So that 15 to 25%, that back end, those producer points, that's on the master sound recording side. Nothing to do with publishing. Remember, who gets publishing? Whoever wrote the song gets publishing. Sometimes your producer writes the song, sometimes the producer doesn't write the song. If they wrote the song, they get publishing. If they did, that producer may still get that back end percentage, 15 to 25% on an indie deal. Where's that money come from? The master sound recording. This is from streams, sales, who's buying shit anymore, but still, you're selling a record, they get paid on that. And any master royalties that come from that. So if you get a sync placement, your song gets the new movie trailer or on a TV show or in a commercial, they're entitled to whatever their percentage is. If they're 20% on the back end, they get 20% of that sync fee. Very important. Now also, they get 20% of any master royalty. So this deals with neighboring rights. What are neighboring rights? You may have heard if you're in the States Sound Exchange or if you're in the UK PPL. These are basically performance royalties for the sound recording. So if your song is played on Pandora Radio, there are some performance royalties on the sound recording, that master side, that you're entitled to. How do they get this? Well, you have to write a letter of direction to Sound Exchange or to your neighboring rights organization saying, hey, my producer gets 20% of the song. Pay them. Don't pay me all the money. Pay them. You got to write that letter of direction. Okay, now who is responsible for registering all this stuff? Guess what? You are. Yes, you. Whoever's watching this, you have to be responsible for registering your own shit. So if you're the producer and you had a hand in writing some of the song, you got to register your percentage of your publishing with your publishing company. Or if you don't have a publishing company, I recommend you work with an admin publishing company. I have a review of all of them. Check out aristake.com. And with your performing rights organization. In the States, ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, in the UK, PRS, that kind of stuff. You, yes, you, don't rely on anybody else to register your work. If you had a hand in writing the song, you have to register your publishing. Yes, you, don't rely on them. And if you get a percentage of that master recording, make sure it's registered everywhere and follow up. If you're distributing the song, make sure that you do that payment splitting. There are some distributors out there who offer payment splitting. I review a bunch of distribution companies on Aristake. Check out the comparison article. You can see which distributors offer automatic payment splitting so you don't have to deal with opening up the books and crunching the numbers every 4 months or whatever. Definitely recommend payment splitting. So you can split up whoever gets a percentage of that sound recording. Your producer maybe gets 20%. Just pop into the back end. My producer, pay them 20%. You don't want to have to deal with crunching those numbers. All right, any questions? Hit me in the comments.